Hello, welcome to Somerset News Network. I've been sort of browsing and thinking, and we've got a new world, a new way of communicating, and that's this. Social media, the internet. There's websites, YouTube channels, X, Rumble, and there's loads of others as well. I think if you look at the United States, how Donald Trump got elected, one of the main reasons was being backed by the leaders of the internet social media channels. It's not me. I'm just doing my own thing and I get, I don't know, half a dozen views if I'm lucky. But we have a few independent people, citizen journalists if you like, who are going to become very influential at the next election. We need to keep them on our side. Nigel Farage needs to keep them on their side. I've seen one or two of them and they've gone over to UKIP because of some of the things that the Reform Party has done. I don't want to talk about that now. What I'm talking about is if Reform, who I support, is going to win at the next election, they have to, I don't know, cozy up to the social media sites, the main ones, the ones that support them. I think that will give them traction, because a lot of the things that are being said aren't going to be reported by the BBC. The BBC won't play the Christmas song, It'll Be Cold This Winter. You know, a brilliant parody. And it hits the nail on the head. But the BBC won't play it. You know, I can remember going to a radio station to do an interview. And I'm sat there. And they've think I'm going to be, you know, right-wing, you know, racist thug, as they call us now. The mad thing is, the socialist was on the other side of the table to me. We agreed with each other. I've never had a radio interview cut short. It was supposed to be a 10-minute piece. I don't think we lasted 3. And I can't even remember what it was over. And if you use common sense, you agree with each other. And my argument was going to be, if the left and the right are agreeing with each other, then the government's got something wrong. And this was when Blair was in power. I'd never been kicked out of a radio station so quick in my life, because I wasn't saying what they thought I was going to say. I'd done loads of radio interviews, and they thought I would say the same sort of thing again. The subject came up, they asked a Labour supporter, I then agreed with him. That wasn't what they wanted to hear. They wanted conflict. But whatever he was saying was right. So I agreed with him and backed him up. I know. The interviewer said, oh, sorry, we've got to go to the news. And we rush it out. And me and this Labour guy, who I didn't know at the time, we said, oh, do you want to go for a coffee? Yeah, all right. So we went across the road to have a coffee in the cafe and we were chatting. Yes, there was a lot we disagreed on. But when it came to common sense and what the right thing to do was, we agreed on absolutely loads of stuff. And that's when I came to the conclusion that the government has really got a problem when the left and the right agree with each other. And that was under Tony Blair. We've now got Starmer, and we're now finding that Labour supporters are saying, oh God, I'm never going to vote Labour again. They're leaving the Labour Party or stopping their support for the Labour Party, like the Conservatives lost a vote. I don't think the Conservatives got their vote out. My constituency was 9,000 votes short. There was 5,000 votes for Reform, which means our MP lost 14,000 votes on his majority they had at the last election. I can see Labour now doing the same thing at the next election. They will hold this election off as long as possible. They've got so many MPs. So we have got to start using social media like this and saying common sense truth. Remind people that the laws of England are the birthright of the people. We have rights and liberties, and we've got to uphold them. We've got to uphold free speech. But I think that Reform has got to start courting these social media sites, getting interviews with them. When they have rallies and that, invite them. I went to the Cardiff rally, and the management there, not Nigel Farage, but the people organising it, said, who are you, what are you doing? And I just said, I'm Somerset News Network. I'm going to record the rally, which I did, which you can find on it. And we went over to Cardiff. It was brilliant. The same thing that's happening in the States now with Make America Great Again was happening with Brexit, and why we should vote to leave the European Union. Now Farage is trying to get that again. And the only way we can do this is by social media helping him. Because we've rejected the Conservatives. The Conservatives became too left-wing. We're rejecting Labour Party because they're an absolute disaster. They've only been in 6 months and the country's going down the pan. Can this country last another 4 years of this? MCE. Watch the last video to find out what MCE is. Hello? I don't swear and cuss. There's enough here to make me swear and cuss. But I don't think we should. Not on social media. There's some sites that are effing blind all over the place, and they're not easy to listen to. So I don't tend to go there. I just want to have a cosy little chat, explain how I think. Now, you don't have to agree with me. But if you do, put a like, put a share, and let these thoughts go far and wide. Let's make a community. You know, and what I'm hoping to do in the future, I don't know if it'll come off, is I'd like to talk to the bigger guys that are really making an impact and see how they've done it, why they've done it, and what effect they're going to have at the next general election. That's what I'd like to do. Don't know if it's going to happen, but that's what I'm working on. What you have to do, if you disagree with the government, is write to your MP. You can send them an email if you like, but all you'll get is a copy and paste email back. If you write to him personally, handwritten letter, brilliant. If not, print it off on a computer. If he receives a letter, don't put any email address on it. Take the email address out. You can put your phone number on there if you like. But do it as a letter. he then has to reply by a letter. Don't copy and paste somebody else's letter. If somebody's got a campaign, don't copy and paste letter. If I was in the civil service for 6 years, if you had copy and paste letters, or they were printed off letters and the people had put their address on it and signed it, they went into one pile. And we wrote one letter to the organisation saying we've received your letters. If it was an individual, we had to write back and say we've received your letter. And if there was any information we could give them, we would add that to that letter. Because that's what we were obligated to do. Because John Major put through a social contract, wasn't it? And we have to answer a letter within 6 weeks. We normally did it within 3. Mostly it was 7. But if we had a sack of mail, no way could you reply to every single one of them. So we would write back to the organisation, just say we've got your petition and it's being considered by the minister. So that's why you have to write individually. Put the arguments in your own words. Don't copy and paste. Because when the civil service get it, they look at it and think that's the same as that one, that's the same as that one, and it doesn't have an impact. An impact, he might have 100 letters, an MP, and they're all the same, they'll be put in one box. Then he's got 100 letters, and they're all individual, and he's got to answer each one individually. That makes him think, and that's what we've got to do. What you've got to do is, we know we're going to have another election. It could be 4 years. But you've got to be politically activated now. You've got to tell the Labour government that you don't like what they're doing. And your vote counts. It might only be 1 vote you got. But you get together as a group and we stand together. You've got 100, 1,000, 10,000 plus in each constituency. We then become a fighting force. Like American Great Again, we have to put the great back into Great Britain. And the only way we can do this is by the common sense people, us, talking to each other, standing up and to be counted. Because we're not going to get anything out of these guys in Parliament now. They're actually trying to shut Reform down. They tried to stop Reform having questions at parliamentary question time. We are turning into a banana republic in front of our very eyes. It's up to us, the people, to keep the pressure on the government to do the right thing. Anyway, that's my little chat over, and there'll be more. This government, if I was in a radio station now working, this government would give you loads of work. When you do a show, you've got topics, and every year you've got topics that come up. Like Armistice Day, and then you've got Firework Night, and they always come up regular as clockwork. But then you're trying to fill holes. The schools are reopening, so you're talking about getting back to school. Yet then you've got the exams and you've got the kids in. And that's what I did. I did a program, or helped out on a program, because I was a youth worker at the time, about getting through exams. And I was just a gopher, an intern. But it taught me how to do radio and how to do interviews and how to do editing. I ended up doing interviews. I did the Charles and Di wedding for Radio Bristol. I went with the reporter, because the reporter was a lovely little girl But she couldn't carry all the kit. We had to carry a ewer, which was a great big reel-to-reel tape recorder. So I went up with her. I was her gopher for the day. Absolutely brilliant. I did a few interviews with people. They didn't get aired, but I did the interviews. I was left with the ewer, and I was meeting people from all over the world. And, you know, I said, oh, were they in it? Oh, they're brilliant interviews, Ian. You asked the right questions, you let them talk, and they were fascinating. Unfortunately, we don't have the time to use them, they said. But I went back to the studio the next weekend when I was in, and they taught me to, it was 4-inch reel to reel, and they taught me to splice and stitch it together. And I did that, and I did the interview, and I gave it in. Because they didn't use it, that's one of those things. But then I've written for magazines. I wrote for Gunmark and Countryman's Weekly, and I've had some stuff printed in the Shooting Times for years. Not regularly, but off and on when I had something to say. And you'd write an article in, and it'd come back to me. Either not good enough, or they've got somebody else doing it. And that's the way it goes. But when we had Dunblane, I was doing research, and I was talking to a Scottish reporter at the time. I think it was the Scottish Record she worked for. And we were talking to each other. And she wanted to understand about shooting and what we do and gun licenses. And I tried to help her out, and she was telling me the local information of what was happening. So I put that local information about Dunblane into an article. Now, this is the only time it ever happened to me. I posted the article. I got a phone call. Ian, absolutely brilliant article. Very well researched, very well written. Unfortunately, we can't use it. Oh, I thought, not enough space? No, there's been a D notice put on it. The information I had on my report was subject to a government D notice. The only time it's ever happened in my life. So I must hit the nail on the head, I thought. Unfortunately, the computer crashed and I lost all the information I had. But let's get back to the topic at hand. We have to support, as ordinary individuals, the better YouTubers, the individual YouTubers who are getting the message out, telling us how bad the government is, how bad the last one is, how bad this one is, and support Nigel Farage and Reform. I think it's the only hope we've got. Yeah, there are problems with Reform. Yeah, there's things I'm not quite sure about. But I think if we support Reform, they will come over to our way of thinking, like the mega people in America. You know, they got together and they became a political body. And we've got to do the same here. We ought to start wearing hats that says, put the great back into Britain. Anyway, Ian, Somerset News Network, signing off. And remember, the laws of England are the birthright of the people. And that's actually in an Act of Parliament. Act of Settlement 1700. Anyway, bye-bye.